Hello, my name is Terry. This video will cover our Fenton investigation of the Sisters Tea House that occurred on June 22nd, 2019. The next three clips contain personal experiences from the tea house that people encountered. I myself experienced one of these. On the back stairway, whenever I went to use it to get from one floor to another, I would experience a sharp stabbing pain in the back, and I just felt miserable for about 10 to 15 minutes after I used the stairway. What was odd though was by the end of the evening, when I went to go retrieve the equipment, when I went to go use the stairway, nothing happened.
We came back here earlier before everyone came here. I was with Margaret. I was starting to have all sorts of physical side effects. I wasn't feeling good at all. I was having back pains and all sorts of stuff.
The next two clips were recorded in the same room of the basement. In the first clip, the Ovilus device says the word ankle. Then one of the people speaks up and tells everyone that they're experiencing pain from their ankles. They had a previous condition where they were having ulcers on their ankles that were extremely painful, and the Ovilus device is commenting on this.
Thank you. Ankle.
Did it really just say ankle?
It said ankle.
Why?
That's creepy.
Why?
I'm having some issues with my ankle. I got.
The next thing that happened in this room is a woman experienced a K2 meter spike on the handheld device that she was holding. Then she was physically touched. But as always the case, when people are touched on camera, whatever's doing it remains invisible. She also comments that she's experiencing goosebumps. This is also common after a person's been touched.
That's weird. What does that mean? Was it me? Could have been me. Oh, really? It could have been, because I was... Something just touched my leg. My knee. I felt it right here. Boy, now I got goosebumps on my legs, Vinny.
What occurs in the next clip is very interesting. Someone will be physically touched off camera, but what makes it very unique is that on the Ovilus device, it says the word touch in advance of it happening. Apparently, they want the individual to know their intentions before they actually physically touch them.
Note your camera, the Ovilus said the word touch. At the exact same time Mike was in the other room when he was physically touched on the arm. What are the odds of that?
In the next group of clips, the PSB7 Ghost Box is used. This device, as configured for our group, uses FM radio frequencies that are swept through at a very high rate of speed. These chopped up pieces of radio contain white noise and small snippets of the radio stations that they're sweeping through. Some people who've been skeptical have said that it's nothing but the small fragments of these radio frequencies that you're listening to. Some of these radio frequencies you can actually hear and make out small little pieces of. The problem with that theory is these small snippets are answering questions point blank that you're asking of them, and that couldn't happen with this. It was nothing more than just random static. The other issue is that foul language is very common in these encounters, and that's another thing that can never happen on a radio frequency. The station person would be immediately fired if they talk like what comes across the PSB7 Ghost Box. So it begs the question, what's the source of these voices? They're also a pattern in that when we go back to these places, these voices are from individual entities that we can recognize by their own voices. Some of them, such as Grumpy Man, we recognize his voice because it's the same every single time we go there. There are also several other entities there, and they're talking to each other, and in some points of time, they're actually getting into heated debates with each other. When Ken turns on his PSB7 Ghost Box, you'll notice the exact same pattern reoccurring. They're speaking to him, and they're also hurling verbal abuse not necessarily to him, but it seems to be at each other. In the next series of clips, I conducted a box test. This is when I brought from home a cardboard box seen in the background with an object that I'd brought from home. I'd sealed it up, and what I do is I bring it to a haunted location and I ask the ghost to tell me what the contents of the box are. We've got Ken's PSB7 ghost box running, and we're asking the questions of what's inside the box. You'll also notice that the name Margaret is repeatedly coming up. Margaret is one of our group sensitives, and several of the entities in this house have a fixation for Margaret, and they are interested in her, what she's doing, and where she's at.
I have a question for you.
Then I asked my first question, what is inside the box? And it quite quickly responded with a correct answer saying musical. But neither of us heard it at the time, and this is rather typical because if the speed of the device is set slightly too fast or too slow, you sometimes just won't catch these answers. But it had immediately gotten a correct hit saying the word musical.
Yes, it's inside the box. It's hidden. There. What's inside?
What's inside, sealed up, is a drum that I'd gotten from the Taos Pueblo out north of Santa Fe. And I had it signed by the man who made it up in the Pueblo. I asked a series of questions about what was in this box. The entity repeatedly tells me what is inside the box, but initially the speed was too far off for either Ken or I to understand the replies that we were getting. Now one of the ghosts steps forward and just says exactly what it is. It says the word drums, but we still can't quite hear what it's saying, and so we completely miss it, that it is correctly answered for a second time.
Do you know what's inside? What's inside this box? Do you know the contents?
And Ken adjusts the speed to a faster rate on his PSB7 ghost box. The ghosts immediately jump on this, realizing that we'll be able to understand what they're saying much more clearly for the first time.
I'm on it. Hey Ken, it's working a lot better now. What did you do?
This is when they say the word musical again, and this is the first time that we were actually able to hear and understand what they were saying. The ghosts are commenting that it worked, and thank goodness, because now we could finally hear what they were saying.
Can you see me holding the box?
Musical.
Musical.
Margaret.
Margaret. Yeah, but you know, it said musical.
Is that close?
It's an authentic Indian drum.
I asked the ghosts if they could tell us the name of the man who made the drum. I don't know if you can see this, but it's Pat Goodnight. And in the following clip, it answers with the name Goodnight, but it says it almost before I get a chance to ask the question. So I'm wondering if they're anticipating what I'm going to say in advance.
Can you tell me the name of the man who made the drum? Can you tell?
I then asked the ghosts if they could make the sound of the drum being struck, and they comply with this, and this we actually heard.
Can you make the sound of the drum?
Did it? First time I heard the drum. Did it? Thank you.
Did you see it said thank you back?
That's the first time tonight I've heard the drum.
One of the ghosts would step forward and say the word drum at this new adjusted speed that we could hear before we moved on to our next series of questions about the man who had accidentally hung himself.
Do you know about the man who was accidentally hung?
Years.
Was it an accident?
This next group of clips is a series of odd comments.
Ah, is that Grumpy? I'm sure you don't like being called Grumpy. You touch your stuff?
Ken, they were standing outside the little girl's room with the obulus, and it says the word little in the little girl. It said the little.
Grumpy commented. I told him it's going to his room. He gets upset.
In the next clip, it triggers my tri-field natural meter. This device is immune to man-made sources of EMF. I also use the word stubborn, and it immediately repeats the exact same word that I had used.
Yay! We're gonna have a good night. When that thing goes crazy, it's good.
It's a natural meter. It's immune to man-made sources.
You say that and it quits.
Yeah,
See how you are?
it's stubborn.
The next clip is very unusual. One of the people is a guest on the tour, but these ghosts are very curious about her and they don't seem to know anything about her, which is very interesting. And they keep making comments, who is she? It's as if each of these entities is trying to get information or feedback from one of the others. Why they're very interested in her, I'm not sure. I don't know if she has sensitive abilities or if she reminds them of someone.
Anybody here wants to talk to me? All you gotta do is cross those fronts. Can we stay for a little while?
I think she's been saying some pretty interesting things.
The final clip I have is in the basement. It's in the same room before that the activity was going on. He's playing back his voice recorder, and we can listen in on the EVPs that he had captured. The question I have is, I don't know if this voice is coming from the playback of his recorder or if it's coming from the capture of the audio track of my camera. I suspect we're hearing the playback of his recorder, but I can't be 100% sure. But either way, it's a genuine EVP, regardless of if it's coming from his voice recorder or if it's from the camera's audio track.